in the mindset theory, we're relishing the resistance. We're saying, this is possibility. There's something here that I'm not aware of yet. Therefore, it's giving me an opportunity to learn and to grow. And it opens up a new avenue of possibilities.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Soul Sessions with Creative Mind. I'm Deborah Burnt Maldonado, and I'm here with Dr. Rob Maldonado.
Yes, nice to be here.
And we are continuing our series on the entrepreneurial mindset. And this is our last segment, which we're going to talk about resistance. But before we begin, I want to remind you, if you are watching us on YouTube, click the button here in the corner and subscribe to our channel. If you are listening to us on podcast services, iTunes, we used to have iPods, iTunes and Spotify or any broadcast services for podcasts, make sure you subscribe to our show and make sure you get every episode. So, Rob, let's review what the entrepreneurial mindset is and why everyone should know about it.
Yeah, so from the time we started our business, we were interested in what is the psychology of success, and what is the psychology of an entrepreneur? Is there such a thing, first of all, and does it really hold water? So our learning curve throughout starting and kind of ramping up the business was this idea that there must be a psychology and understanding of the principles of success that we can apply in our everyday work, right, in creating our business. So one of the great things that we found was this idea of the entrepreneurial mindset theory. So it's a theory, it's an actual... Yeah, it's an actual psychology based on research and understanding of how the mind works that talks about this idea of, what are the principles of success and in a psychological sense, not in a business sense. Of course, we all understand and we kind of admit and acknowledge that we need to learn business principles, of course. That's a given. But what makes a difference, because those business principles are out there, a lot of people have access to them. What makes one person succeed in a tremendous way and another person fail and never be able to get off the ground? It's the mindset.
People can follow the same exact theory, strategy, formulas, and some will just be wildly successful and other people will feel like they're struggling and they'll blame it on the formula or the marketing or the market and think, well, I remember when I first started, I was like changing my brand a lot before you and I worked together. I had changed my title like every couple of weeks. I'm now this kind of coach or I'm that kind of coach. And I thought, well, maybe that's why I'm not successful. And I started really dig deep and working with a coach to help me see what's in my mind that's creating it. And that has always been my go-to since that moment. And always the first step is the outside is showing something inside.
Yes. So we talked a little bit about the personality traits that go into a successful entrepreneur. We talked about the theory itself a little bit. So now we're kind of wrapping it up and putting it all together. And really talking about one of the most important elements of being an entrepreneur is dealing with resistance. Because it's not a question of if resistance comes up, it's a definite, it's going to come up. But guess what? We want it to come up. We want it to come up. It's a useful principle to understand that resistance is not bad. It doesn't mean I should stop.
It's not a sign that this is not right for you.
Yes.
Or that it's too hard and maybe you should try something else.
Yes. And if we read it that way, of course, we're going to stop because again, it's going to come up. Resistance is it's not an option. Mm-hmm. It's not optional. It's going to come up. Anyone who is successful in any endeavor, but especially as an entrepreneur in the arts as well, they know how to work with resistance. They know how to put it to work for their own advantage.
And so if you think about your comfort zone being a bubble of your current reality, and outside of that bubble is where all your dreams are, and the inside of the bubble is your normal, conditioned default to what you can create. And a lot of people, they try to rearrange the furniture inside their own bubble, maybe get another job that pays the same, but it's still kind of the same result. But when you're really stepping up as an entrepreneur, or just changing careers, or going for a promotion, or doing something big in your life, some project that you want to launch, it takes something else that you haven't learned yet, something that you haven't made conscious yet, that you need, a resource that you haven't even had experience with yet. And so your ego is going to resist popping that bubble. It's want to press you and stay inside. Change is scary to the ego. And so when we're hitting that resistance, that's a good sign, because we're on that edge. We're hitting that edge of something new. And if we just keep holding on, things will start to change. But most people, they hit the resistance, try another way, maybe go around the bubble a little bit, maybe try this angle, hit the resistance, and they're just going in circles and not really pressing through. And so what kind of mindset do we need to deal with this resistance? Because if we're going to deal with it, if all our hopes and dreams and biggest desires are outside of that resistance, on the other side of the resistance, how do we get through it?
Yeah. So let's say you're an entrepreneur and you have a vision. You're ready to start your practice, your business, your project. A lot of people focus on the action again. They think it's the right kind of action. It's the right strategy. It's the right formula that's going to make me successful. Now, we do advocate for action. You have to take action. Without the action, you do not receive you don't see the success. You have to take action. But before the action occurs, you have to get your mind straight. You have to understand that your vision is already there. The universe, the way it exists for us, is as potential. And the thoughts that you have, the idea that you have, already exists there. It's locked into that universal presence that we call the world, but it's locked up in potential still. The action is going to release it. The action is going to make it what we call a reality. So you have to understand that principle, that the thought is the one that creates, the action is the one through which you receive, which is a very different way of understanding the world than the typical way that we're taught, right? The worker mentality is one of the work creates the success, the work creates the money, the work creates the reward. That's a false or a misunderstanding of how the world works.
So what if someone has the vision and they start acting toward it and they hit that resistance?
They will hit the resistance.
When they hit the resistance, what would you say is the mindset key to handle that? Because we all have had that. Oh, I want to try this, and we start and go out there. And I think one of the big things we'll talk about today is this idea of non-attachment. Because when you have a dream, of course you care about it and you're passionate about it. But when it becomes attachment, there's a fear like wrapped up in it, like a fear I'm not going to get it. So when we're acting from attachment, we are carrying that big vision, but we're dragging along with us almost like an anchor that's dragging on the bottom of the ocean that says it's really not going to happen, or, oh my God, if it doesn't happen, my life is going to be destroyed, or I'm putting all my worth into this thing happening, or my identity and not failing. And all those things stop us from actually making that vision, because it's tainted in the ego's agenda.
Yes.
So it's like reach the dream, but don't look like a fool.
Right.
Reach the dream, but don't fail. Reach the dream, but don't lose all your money. Reach the dream, but don't let your parents not feel proud of you.
Yes. So we can think of the vision as the seed. It's the seed of what you're going to create. The action is creating the conditions for that seed to grow. So as you take action, there's going to be results. Every action yields a result, right? It's basic physics, cause and effect. So anytime you take an action, there will be results. In practicing non-attachment, like you say, the principle is very different than the usual approach. Instead of thinking in positive or negative, in reward or punishment, or in good and bad results, you drop that. There are no good or bad results. The focus is on the action. Are you staying in action consistent with your vision? And if yes, you don't worry about the results, which is a very difficult concept for people to accept, because they want to read the world in positive or negative, that duality of good and bad. Is this good for me or is this bad for me? But what happens in that scenario is you go back to ego, because the ego is the one that sees the world in black and white, in good and bad. It's very functional. It works for survival, but not for creating.
Well, I just want to point out, I didn't want to interrupt, but something to point out with the word you used is you do not worry about the result. He did not say you don't care about the result. Think of that word worry. What does that imply? I just wanted to pull that out there because I thought that was such a powerful part of this non-attachment. Worry, what is worry? Worry means that you don't really believe it's going to happen or it's possible, so you worry. You have a teenager that says they're going to be home by 10, and they're home by, it's 10:30, they're not home yet. What do? You worry. And what is worry? It's fear. It's, worried about, are they going to be safe? And when you're bringing that worry into your action, you're basically tainting it with a belief that, I don't know if it's going to work. Yeah. Maybe it will. And like you said, that ego attachment. But I thought it was interesting that you said, you don't worry about the result. Don't worry. Be happy. You can care, but you don't have to worry. You can care without worrying. Anyway, I just thought that was a simple word that I wanted to pull out there.
Yes, very good. But the focus, let's say the intention, is more on the action. Mm-hmm. In other words, you're not so concerned about whether the action is successful or unsuccessful. You drop that judgment. You focus on what resources, what focus, how can I make this action the best possible action that I can take given the parameters of my vision. That's the focus. So it frees you up from that worry of what results you get. Now, do you look at results? Of course, but you look at them as information.
Not as blame, not as defeat.
That's it.
Not as discouragement.
Yes.
But, okay, that's interesting.
Yes. So notice this. When you do that there is nothing, no way you can make an error, because you're not framing your actions in the framework of success or failure. You're framing your action in the framework of your vision, your higher vision, your higher purpose. You're moving towards your higher purpose, and the feedback, the results, is giving you information of how you can better your actions, how you can make your actions more aligned with your vision, with your higher purpose. Now, what that does, it creates like a purification process. The more action you take, the more pure your vision becomes, because it's honing it, it's sculpting it, it's refining it continuously.
Wouldn't you say, though, it's more than just changing your actions, though? Because if you're getting the same results over and over, so you keep hitting a wall, it's the feedback is, wow, there's a pattern here. And not only do I have to change my action, but what am I thinking? What am I bringing in? Am I attached? Am I, holding an idea that I'm not even conscious of? And that result is showing us what's unconscious in us, that's stopping us from having a result. So let's say you're selling a service and everyone's telling you, you're too expensive, you're too expensive, you're too expensive. Now, a lot of coaches or service people will be, wow, I'm getting a lot of feedback that I'm too expensive. Maybe that's the problem. Let me change my prices. Let me lower them. And then they go lower their prices and they still get, you're too expensive, you're too expensive. And what they really need to work on is their mindset around receiving, their mindset around their pricing. They need to be aligned that it's worth it. If they don't think it's worth it, the people that come into their business are going to reflect that. So it's not just about, oh, this Instagram doesn't work for me, I'm going to try YouTube, or marketing this way, or this brand doesn't work. It's always looking at what's in the mind, not just the action.
Yeah, because then resistance begins to take on a different function. If any result is giving you information, what happens when you see those patterns of, oh, this is not moving me towards my higher vision, it's giving you information about your own mind. Because, again, the understanding from the entrepreneurial mindset theory is that it's mindset. It's the mind that is kind of creating the obstruction. The action is simply bringing it to consciousness, to awareness. It's showing it to you. So it's the best possible way to do personal development, to be an entrepreneur, if you understand this principle, because every action you take is revealing to you more of your mind, and the
becoming
things
more self-aware.
Yes, and the things that appear to push back, to resist, are actually useful to you. They're the points where you have to learn. You have to take your time and ask, what is this teaching me about my own mind? What is this telling me about why I'm let's say interested in creating this kind of business? Why do I have this vision?
So if your mind, this can also reflect the things that are stopping you. When you are holding the vision and believing in it, and that coming with that non-attachment and purifying your mind, the results will also show you that where you're in alignment, where you're connected to that higher purpose. And non-attachment, you call it the superpower.
It is a superpower that we as entrepreneurs have, because it liberates us from that kind of hard work approach. A lot of coaches teach this kind of just push through it, just muscle your way through it, and don't look back and don't worry about what's going to happen. There's something to that. Of course, we know persistence and focus are very powerful. But the mindset theory says something different. It says your vision is already created. If you have the vision and you're clear on that vision, it's already there. The actions are simply to receive it. So it's a more kind of effortless way of creating and of doing your business, creating your life, because the action, because the actions that you're taking are in alignment with your higher vision. They're not hard work. They're essentially the things that you love to do. They're in alignment with who you are and what your purpose is. Therefore, they don't feel like work. They feel more like creative work,
like fun.
Yeah. And it might look like hard work from the outside, though.
Other people think your work, they work so hard.
They do a lot.
Yeah,
But it's essentially it's essentially that's what you do. That's who you are. Even if you weren't doing your business, that's what you would be doing. And therefore, it's not that hard struggle to get things done.
I think imagine a maze, and in the middle of the maze is your dream. And you enter the maze, and there's all these twists and turns and going down the wrong road. And your attitude toward that wrong curve is going to dictate how much you are going to keep going. And if you can say, "Ooh, I learned one way not to do this," or "I learned where my mind was," and when I'm intuitive, I feel like I know to turn left or right, and I'm more in touch with who I am, and I'm more non-attached. This is how things flow. It's almost like you're getting tools to work with your mind and understanding that muscle of holding the vision. But knowing that no matter what you do, no matter how many mistakes you make, no matter how many wrong turns you make, that goal is there already, that it's inevitable that you will get it. And that's that non-attachment, that it's inevitable. I don't have to worry about my results. I know they're there. I'm just going to have to deal with the journey to get there. And the journey to get there is always filled with landmines and blocks and barriers. And it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just means that you are creating something new. And I found that every obstacle for me has been so rewarding and so much lesson and learning from them.
And it requires, it requires some discipline because the natural tendency in the mind is to think in problems, right? We're always, the ego is always looking for problems to solve. What is the problem? Let's solve it and kind of move on. But in the mindset theory, we're relishing the resistance. We're saying, this is possibility. There's something here that I'm not aware of yet. Therefore, it's giving me an opportunity to learn and to grow. And it opens up a new avenue of possibilities. So when resistance shows up, we're actually celebrating it a little bit, because we're saying we're hitting upon the good stuff here. Something's coming up that's pushing back. Therefore, something new is about to come into our possibilities.
When I first started doing hypnotherapy, I had a flat tire. Someone stole the checks out of my car. I got someone broke into my car and stole all my checks and my appointment. I mean, all these things were happening, and I called my coach at the time and I said, "Why are all these things happening? I feel like everything's happening really like spinning." And she said, "Oh, because you're up to something." I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. And I thought that was such a great reframe. Instead of thinking, the universe is telling me it's not the right time, or the universe is telling me you really can't handle all this. It's like, no, this is all new stuff, and all the things that you didn't have to face in your comfort zone are going to be faced when you step out of it. And it only makes you stronger, more courageous, more powerful. And so how do we become more flexible in this time? And it really is that non-attachment. You become flexible and not so rigid when it comes to developing, just like any art. When you write, I'm a writer, so when you write that first draft without attachment. You just write down everything. You're not editing while you're writing. And so you want to keep in that flow of the first draft and the second. I know this is just a first draft. There's going to be a second draft and a third draft. And you're not so attached to making it perfect the first time. That's how creativity works. You can't be creative from such a left brain place of everything has to have so much structure and everything has to fall into a certain order.
Yes. Yeah, and again, that discipline to drop the judgment of good and bad and right and wrong, and to really think creatively through things, and to stay open and not go with the physical reaction that often comes when things don't work out or unexpected things come up. So often the people ask this question in different variations, but essentially what they're asking is, why should I act with non-attachment? If the whole world or most of the world is acting from attachment, and they seem to be gaining some traction and creating success for themselves, why should I practice non-attachment? Won't that prevent me from enjoying the results of my work? And it's the contrary. It's the contrary. You will be able to enjoy your life in a more meaningful way because you're not worried about losing the things you're creating. Non-attachment means that you understand the true nature of reality. And the true nature of reality, we know, is fleeting. It's impermanent, as the Buddha says, right? Impermanence is the nature of the world. And you can test this. This is not metaphysics. Look at the world around you. Is it changing?
Is your body changing?
Yes.
The day changes, the night changes, the seasons change.
Yes, that's right. So when we act out of attachment, which is an impossibility, we can't be attached to anything. We can't really hold on to things. But when we act that way, and we're taught that way, we're acting out of delusion. We're delusional. We're thinking that things are going to be different than they are. That things are going to be permanent, stable, consistent. That is not the way the world is. Again, observe it. Find something that's still static for a prolonged period of time. You will not find it.
Well, it's like going on vacation. You have this vacation you plan. It's going to be over. This life, it's going to be over. There's nothing that you can really hang on to.
Yes.
I mean, our pets or people we love change. Our house eventually needs repair. A car needs repair. We have to upgrade our computers, our Macs every couple of months. Software download, get a new iPhone every year. Like everything is in constant flux. I think even now, even more so, the world is in more a transition and a speeding up of change. And so if we're trying to hang on to everything, it can create such anxiety.
Absolutely. And it appears that people are creating success for themselves, right? They're accumulating money, wealth, material, but it's an appearance again, because if they're acting out of attachment, sooner or later, their circumstances will change. The economy will change, the world will change, et cetera, and then they'll be in trouble. Whereas when you're following these deeper principles of the entrepreneurial mindset theory, you understand that that's the nature of the world. That's the nature of the game that you're playing in the world. That its appearance, it's impermanent. It's going to change. And then some people ask, well, then what is real? What is reality? Why should I create a business if you're saying that everything is kind of moving in a flux and impermanent? So here's the clincher. There is a reality. There is a true foundational, absolute reality that you can stand on, you can count on. But that reality is not the world. It's not the way things appear. The reality is awareness. It goes back to mind, right? That's why it's mindset, that the mind is the one and the thing that you're working with. Your consciousness is the one absolute principle in the whole equation. When you're operating from that understanding, then you're sane. You're not in delusion. You're not delusional. You're not chasing mirages.
You're sane?
Hopefully. You're not driving yourself crazy. You're not chasing your own tail and fighting your own shadow, as Jung would say.
Or worrying about things that haven't happened yet. And like Mark Twain says, I had a lot of terrible things have happened in my life. Most of them didn't come true or something. I can't remember the exact quote. But it's that idea that we worry so much about things that never come to fruition. And then we end up not reaching our dreams because we worry so much. And the mind has a negative bias. So it's always going to be thinking of what can go wrong, what can go wrong, what can go wrong. That's like the default. So with an entrepreneurial mindset, we have to be open to how can things go right for me? How are things going right? Not attachment, but not looking at it from that lens of security, fear, worry, and coming from what could be possible. Because even in a so-called negative result or feedback that isn't what you planned, how can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? This is an opportunity. Always, it just opens up the possibilities just by making it an opportunity versus locking it down in that's wrong and I need to make a right turn or a left turn. I need to do things differently, or just sit there and beat yourself up or give up. You know, a lot of people just give up. They say, I guess it wasn't meant for me and I don't have what it takes. But we all have what it takes. I wanted you to know that all of you have what it takes to be wildly successful. And if you know how to work with your mind, that's what's going to make it possible.
Yes, these principles, let's say they give us a choice that we don't have to be successful like other people are, or the way they've done their success, but it's a choice, meaning it's we're not settling for something out of limitation or out of a sense of that's all I can do and I can't do anything else. Whatever choice we make, it's a real choice because we have those options that if we do want to create something big, a big company or something, that it's an option for us. We're not limited by our mind. Whereas when people often make those kind of choices, they're doing it out of fear, out of limitation, out of that's all I think I can do. That's a very different way of existing in the world. So the superpower of non-attachment is in alignment with the deeper principles of mind, consciousness, reality. That's why it's so powerful. When you're acting out of non-attachment and you're creating something out of a higher vision, your higher purpose, you're in alignment with universal principles. You're acting in a reality, an absolute reality, instead of the apparent reality of how things appear.
You basically see things as they could be versus as they are. And the world is always going to reflect what you believe about your possibilities. So not just reflect it, but also how you respond to the world really shows you what you believe about those possibilities. When I was looking for a publisher for my first book, Let Love In, people told me, you don't have a degree in psychology, you're a hypnotherapist, who's going to want to publish your book? You're not, famous, you don't have a lot of resources, and who are you? No one's going to pick up. You should do self-publishing. But I said, no, I'm going to do this. I wrote the book, and I got a deal with the largest nonfiction publisher, Wiley, in the world. And everyone, even after that, said, how did you do that? How did you do that? You don't have like national fame, or I just believed it. I believed that this book needed to be out there. So you really can, if you hold your mind in the face of adversity, even if everyone around you is telling you it's not going to happen, you hold your mind and it has to come. It has to come because your mind is that powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's kind of the wrap up on the entrepreneurial mindset theory. We hope we inspire you to, if you have a vision, if you have an idea, to go for it. This is a time, it's a great time. It's a great place to do this kind of work. And just keep in mind that if you lack any of these principles, you can always learn them. You can cultivate them, and that's the key.
And resistance, if you don't have resistance, that means you're really not up to something. And resistance is actually a sign that you're on the verge of change. So keep that in mind as well. And we'll see you next week on another episode. Have a great week and go out there and face those obstacles and turn them into opportunities. Take care.
See you soon.
Bye-bye. you.